Was your idea for your film division, your DVD division, is it kind of like to make things that are more or less like for a particular group of people, or is this something you're trying to kind of hope in the end, like you're going to start putting out things like like the Woodstock DVDs that come out and they're accessible to a majority of the people around the country?
See, I haven't, I guess, put as much thought into that particular like division as I think I should. We've been talking about a Release the Bats 2 for the longest time
already.
Now. Yeah, and we have all the footage. We haven't edited it, and it's kind of moved away from some of the jackassy stuff to more. I mean, I think a more intimate, like behind the scenes, and then like also kind of like with these skits within it as well. And I mean, I would love to be able to appeal to a wider audience, but the problem is every time I'm ever told that we want to do that or whatever, we were told, you need financial backing or you need whatever, and that, to be honest, because of where our band is and stuff, it's not really that hard to get that, but it's always this like, $10 million snowboarder movie where it's a band and they like rob banks too or something, like I don't know, like right. And that's like really one that we've been approached with. That's like honestly one we've been approached with, and like I know enough that anything that I put my name on or our brand on, it has to be something that I'm really into, and so if it's not, and it's just to get your foot in the door, I think it's probably just like a poor idea. So it's something where I want to do it more, and one of the other things I want to do is I want to release for like our artists and for Fall Out Boy is release like video reels, because I don't know, like Morrissey used to do it and stuff, and I don't think bands really do it as much anymore. Sometimes labels do, but they'll just like slap it on kind of, or whatever. Right. And it's like, I think that there's videos that we have out, that a lot of people have probably just never seen before because they just don't get played anywhere at all. And I think it would be cool at some point to have like this one that's like career spanning. Like
an ultimate box set, visual box set.
Yeah, definitely.
So is it something like for the when you're starting the DVD side, is it something that you're purposely as a entrepreneur, is it something that you're sitting there going, I want to have my hand in as many things as possible that could utilize the talents of our band into? Is that really the idea, or is it kind of like you're waking up one day going, you know what, maybe I just want to have a...
It's kind of like a mix of both, because sometimes it's like, I really want, like, and you get, like I said, like we get approached with like the craziest stuff ever. Like, how about, a Fall Out Boy sports drink? And you're like, let me think, and it's always like, you're always weighing like the what makes sense versus what really just doesn't make sense at all, and
Sure.
What's forward moving, versus what's not. And, I'm not stupid. I pay attention to like, DVDs are kind of an essential technology as far as that goes right now, I think, because ripping them and downloading them is still a lot harder to do than music. And I've noticed a lot of shows and different things kind of have more cult followings than DVDs, and you're able to kind of do that, A gold DVD I think is 50,000, and I just think that it's kind of a different market, and it's interesting, and it's something interesting to do, but we're kind of just dipping our toe in it right now, and not trying to jump headfirst and put out like 1,000 DVDs or like before we've really figured it out, because it's a completely the interesting thing about all the facets is they're completely different. And if you approach them only the same way you approach your band, I don't know. I've particularly noticed, like, I feel like I've seen a lot of musicians kind of fail in other endeavors because I think they've approached them like they approach their band. It's like people will ask me why I don't wear like clandestine on stage every single night, and one of the reasons is because I've watched with whether it's rappers or musicians or whatever, and sometimes their clothing line will have something cool in it or whatever, but at some point it became oversaturated, like they'd worn it too much, and essentially they have two of these things, like two of their band, and it's like people who are not into your band might even think that the thing is cool, but they're not going to buy it because it essentially means that they like your band, you know?
Right.
And so, I don't know, it's a fine line to walk because at the same time, you want people to know about it. And, you know, I don't go and slap it on other bands or anything like that. So it's kind of like, how do you do it, you know? It's Yes, definitely.
Or almost subconsciousness.
Definitely.
It's kind of interesting because we actually found that, you know, as much as, you know, people may want this thing in one format, but another format it may not happen. Like with the Offspring, every time we put the Offspring on the cover, it never sold. I mean, you know, multi-million, you know, even at that peak when they were in, there was a 95, 96 or so like that, and sold crap.
Right.
And so we just kind of got the feeling that Offspring fans just want to hear them.
Yeah,
they don't want to read about them. So, you know, it definitely does happen. But, you know, is this something where, you know, you went to university at DePaul, and now the question is, I had heard that you had majored in business, but I've also heard political science.
Political science.
So was this something that you were kind of, you know, at some point sitting back in college, you know, I remember when I was in college, I would start daydreaming at some point or another, especially with a bad prof. And, you know, and you start daydreaming like, you know, someday I'm going to do this, that, and this, and this, and this. And was a lot of these projects that you're doing now with the books and that, was that something that you would kind of like, you know, thought about back then? Or is this something now we're just kind of kicked in with the opportunities because of the connections, the networking, the money, and the success, and the branding?
I think I always had daydreams. Like I would have ideas, and I still have them all the time, where I'm like, man, I really want to get this patented. You know, I'll come up with, you know, random ideas and and you know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's sometimes the stupidest things, but I mean, you watch these things that come out and some of them are just like the stupidest kind of, you know, whatever ideas. And so I've always had that. And this is just kind of just a huge stepping stone to be able to kind of showcase some of the ideas. And, you know, some of them you have a huge passion for, but still aren't interesting to people. And it's like, how do you negotiate? Like, it's still something that you feel passionate about. So you're still going to put some of your effort into it, but you know, so it's interesting.
Is there something where you I just have to get this out of my head because I do so much in politics on my side time, but was that why the political science?
It's weird. Growing up in high school, I really liked writing and I really liked history, and I couldn't really care for any other subjects at all. And
same here.
So when I went into college, I just found myself I went in and I was like, you know, undeclared for a long time, and I kind of just found myself gravitating towards those courses, and particularly those professors. I really felt like for the most part they had similar ideologies to me, I felt like at DePaul, and but similar in the way they were obviously older and far more well thought out, you know. And I just thought that was probably the direction that I would be heading in my life. And so I don't know, I was really interested in it, and I didn't want to have just like a cocktail party knowledge of it, kind of like I wanted to be able to really, you know.
Get into the Habsburg Empire.
No, totally.
Exactly. Let's debate about
it. So
for all the history geeks out there, what was your period? Every history geek's got a period that they were fascinated in, or a nation. You know, like you go to Barnes and Noble and you're always going to that one spot on that history section.
Right. I guess for me it would be sometimes, I mean, it depended. I guess it was either Industrial Revolution or I was definitely into and this is probably just from reading a weird Tom Brokaw book, was all like the World War II kind of
the best generation.
Yeah, the best generation, the parents of the baby boomers or whatever. And I thought that was interesting, and like, you know, like the last war fought for the right reason. I don't know. I mean, I found it all interesting. I mean, think at the time, and a little bit of that's kind of me kind of reviewing history probably in a different way, because I think at the time I was really into like the Zapatistas and I was really into, you know, kind of these ultimate like leftist like revolutionary groups.
Central America.
Yeah. And it's like when I was 18 and 19, that was what was really you know, like that was what felt right and felt exciting.
Hate
and I
the
was
CIA,
and I was really into like, you know, like the Huru Party and the Black Panther Party and.
Did you have a Che Guevara shirt?
Yeah, of course, you know, before it was in Hot Topic, you know. But I mean, it was that was what was really exciting about it to me. But as I was in political science, like you learn about everything that leads up to that and how that's existed in various different countries through various periods in time and in various different structures, kind of.
You know, this may be a stretch of a question. I'm just curious about it, but is there anything you can take from history, from what you've learned, you read, and you've experienced, and you've studied and stuff like that, and been able to apply it to your careers so far with the band, and kind of keep you guys from making mistakes or steering yourself, or maybe kind of working through some bull crap that you guys have had to go through?
Well, definitely when you read anything about the founders or the guys like right before they left, I mean, I think a lot of it's applicable, and obviously like Jay-Z and everyone else I've read, I think, what is it, the 48 Laws?
Yeah. The 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that came out, like the 48 Laws of it's like not influence, but like influence. So how to like win somebody over.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of them are obvious, and if you're a certain type of personality, you do them anyway. And then a lot of them, when you read them, you're like, it makes me feel like a really bad person,
right?
You know,
exactly.
or whatever. And you're like, do I do that? You know, or whatever. Right. And it's like, it's very Machiavellian.
Yeah,
and,
I was just gonna say.
You know, but that's definitely applicable. And I think that, I mean, even down to the point of like looking at like, you know, like the Black Panther Party and their points and kind of when you try to do something, I mean, because essentially what it's always kind of been to me is it's gone to this Rage Against the Machine lyric, which is the weirdest thing and it's never ever been said in interviews. I've said it a couple times, but nobody's ever said it, is that like whenever I think about it, I think about, you know, fuck the G-Ride, I want the machines that are making them, you know. And it's like when you're in a band this level or whatever you're doing at this level, like there's always going to be corporations that are, you know, looking to back you or looking to be involved with you or whatever it is. And it's like, why couldn't you be that corporation, you know? And then you would always be going to sleep with whatever your ideals are.
Right.
Like you would know what they are.
Well,
like
it's the
whether
ultimate DIY.
Yeah, totally. And it's like whether you're really doing it or not, you know? And so I'm always looking for new ways to do that, you know, from, you know, buying the printing press, you know, and then to figuring out, you know, with the label too. It's like learning the business side has been really interesting for me because it's I mean, like they're all just so different, and being on the other side of things as far as that goes, you know, having the other conversation with the band, you know, where you are the A&R guy is such a weird, you know, it's totally screws with your mind, you know, but I don't know, at the end of the day, I think it's a really great adventure story, and it's like you look to, I mean, a guy like Jay-Z is cool, but really like Richard Branson or,
right,
you know, or Howard Hughes, these guys who are like, you know, untouchable as far as that goes, you know, like anyone who's like at, you know, like an airline and a movie, you know, I mean, it's bizarre to me, you know, and it's
on the verge of, you know, eccentricity or sort of,
it's
so eccentric.
Yeah, and it's insane, and it's like, can people still do it anymore? And obviously Richard Branson proves that you can, but I don't even know that everybody, I mean, it's so gigantic that I don't even, because I was talking to, you know, people on a bus the other day about Richard Branson, and, you know, I was like, you know, he started, you know, Virgin, and, you know, I was like, everything Virgin is Richard Branson or started by Richard Branson, you know?
It's like David Geffen.
Yeah, totally. And they were like, so like Virgin Airlines? I was like, yeah. And they were like, Virgin Records? They were like, I was like, yeah. I was like, there's also this Virgin train system in Europe that's gigantic. I mean, and it was like, he owns like whatever amount of islands and now is trying to, you know, take private, you know, shuttles into space.
Well, in the theory, I guess what the stock markets were saying is the reason why he wants to create that alternative fuel is because he'll own it.
Yeah.
Everybody will have to buy the airline fuel from him.
Right, and it'll be his.
Very genius.
Yeah.
Very, very. I mean, of course, it wasn't in any of the press releases, but very genius. So, I mean, I guess that is something to be said about basically anybody at the age of 30 is that they don't you can't sell to them like you could to people over 30. You can't sell them a widget or a shirt or something like that. And they're very distrustful of corporations. They're very distrustful of the sale. And I guess, you got your own record company now. And there's a lot of talk from people that start record companies saying, I'm going to do it differently.
Right.
I'm not going to rip off my artists. And
Right.
I'm not going to, the old deal where it's like, you want to get paid for your royalties, then try and audit me.
Right.
And I guess, has there been things like with your own record company that you set off right at the bat saying, I'm not going to do it this way and that way and this way?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we're in a very, 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 very bizarre situation because I don't even know how much of this I'm allowed to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So
you can call me up later. We'll edit out.
Our deal goes through Fueled by Ramen. So we're distributed by ADA, but we don't have a deal with a major label. We have a deal with Fueled by Ramen, who then has whatever deals they have. And essentially, when it began, we were a boutique label. Like I called up John from Fueled by Ramen every day for about 3 weeks and was like, sign the academy, sign the academy, sign the academy. And it was kind of just because they were friends of mine and I really liked their music and I thought they could be really great, but there was no.
But isn't the whole idea not to hire your friends?
Oh yeah. That's always. No, that's always.
Just asking.
No. That's always.
It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, that's always.
Somebody's got to be the dick at some point.
Yeah. It's always a bad idea, and thankfully that usually for the most part. When you're a creative person and the other people are creative people, like I think you give each other different room, kind of, versus when it's a very business-minded person and a creative person, And I think that being an artist, that I have that understanding a little bit as well. Like it's it's hard to navigate, but I mean, one of the things that we decided was that that we were going to essentially have somewhat of a democracy and that every band was going to be able to vote and have other bands on the label. And I mean, it's been existing and it's how the label's been running. But at some point, I mean, I foresee it'll be a problem. And at some point it's like, why would this,
Hopefully your cell phone will be shut off.
Yeah, right. And why did these guys get this amount of votes and these guys should get this, whatever. And I mean, essentially it all kind of, maybe, went really wrong and really right with Panic because it changed us from a boutique label to what kind of everybody was talking about. And it was just a freak of nature. I mean, like a lot of it was like the right place at the right time. Like, right when people were like, Fall Out Boy was kind of reaching its, or heading towards its peak on From Under the Cork Tree. I mean, a lot of people were like, your fan base that jumps right in with you and at the get-go kind of is like, I don't want to, like my brother wears that shirt now. I don't want to be into that band. And all of a sudden there's this new Fall Out Boy they can be into that's like version 2.0 because like it's got like, like dancing monkeys on stage or whatever,
Right. And then you're competing with yourself.
Yeah, essentially. And it's, I mean, and to be honest with you, that's one of our most recent issues is that our bands all compete in most of the categories that they're in, like the Woody Awards, they all compete with each other. For video space, they all compete with each other. It's like all our bands against each other, and it's like you always are able to like, put in the extra phone call or put in the extra little bit, and it's like, how do you decide to do that and who
over one
do
person over
yeah,
another,
and why do you pull the trigger on one thing versus the other? And
I don't know. Which girlfriend do you like the most?
Right, totally. It can be it's a very strange headspace, and then a lot more in the music industry is kind of glad handing people. Then especially once you get to a major label level, like it's like all of a sudden when our label wasn't boutique anymore, like certain people wanted me on the phone once a week, but not like really to talk about anything, just because they like had to get me on the phone once a week. And some of it I'm not very good at, and I don't really, I'm not really interested in doing. And I mean, that's one of the good reasons that I do it with John from Fueled by Ramen, because he is able to do that like far more, flawlessly. He'll be up at 9 a.m. and he will,
He's a business guy.
Yeah, totally.
You're the idea guy.
Yeah, I'm the idea guy and he's the business guy. And it's interesting because it's like, I learn more about it, like I know about like different end caps and like whether it's worth this amount of money, and co-ops and these different things. But at the same time, like I couldn't put together like, our annual reports or anything like that, So it's kind of been an interesting thing, but it's been a like great learning process. Right. And it's just the learning curve got really, went really fast when Panic showed up, kind of.
So I realize I haven't been putting in any breaks for songs. We've been talking and talking, which is fascinating. So why don't we try and do a quick break for like 2 songs? But why don't we play something that's on your iPod? That's like something that's. Why don't we play something that kind of has like probably like the 2 songs that probably help you chill out the most? Maybe kind of like a crazy day. And it's just hell, and maybe all those bands are pissed off at you because, Fall Out Boy got an MTV and none of them did, and so you've been getting the phone calls and the text messages. Right. And what are those 2 songs that you would say, these are my Zen songs?
I would definitely, randomly, I think I would probably say, let me think. Smith's Lullaby, or is it Morrissey Lullaby?
I think it is Smith's.
Smith's Lullaby, and then I don't know the names of the songs, but it's this band Kent.
Kent, okay.
Yeah, and because I think the songs are all in Swedish, or they're in a different language.
Fun finding
yeah. But no. The interesting thing about Kent is they were like the band that I was sure was like the next, band. Like they were definitely in the Muse, Radiohead, and I was like, yeah, this is, and then it was just like it went dark. It was just like no.
Well, that whole genre did.
Yeah, it was kind of like
unfortunately.
Yeah, anything by Kent.
Just to kind of bring a little levity back into it, you started off talking about one of the things I wanted to ask you about, which is, what are some of the we always hear, fans always see what you've done. They see you on the VMAs, they see you on this or that, or at this red carpet thing or that thing. But what are some of the things you guys have turned down? I mean, I don't mean you to like burn bridges, but but I'm just kind of, you never hear about that side of things.
No, totally.
Because you actually build more credibility.
Yeah, definitely. Down. And it's like nobody ever really broadcasts it. Well, there's been a couple. I mean, I guess a lot of people. I don't know if people know about the Kids Bop thing, but they listed Dance Dance on the Kids Bop track listing last year. And I wrote them an email kind of saying, I don't really understand how kids are going to be singing like I only want sympathy in the form of you crawling into bed with me. I was like, doesn't really seem like it's a good idea for either of us, And they were like, well, sometimes, bands change their lyrics. And I was like, well, I don't know. We're just not going to do that. It's just not really our thing.
A&R person on that thing really didn't pay attention.
Yeah, and it's and
they just were thinking brand names.
Yeah, and possibly has something to do with Patrick's enunciation or whatever, and probably, or whatever. But so
didn't know you had a Eliza Doolittle problem.
Right, yeah. But the interesting thing I think is like, I mean, if we ever wanted to do like a kids friendly record, like if I ever had kids, like I'm sure we would want to.
Record?
I mean, we would just do it on our own and do it the way we wanted, I think, to do it. Early on in our career, we got approached by like numerous beer companies, kind of, and I think it was before they really realized the age of our crowd, and so there was kind of like a, where is your beer tonight? I hope it is a Heineken. Like that kind of interest in the band, and that was not really the right thing for the band.
But there is a ringtone in that.
Yeah, definitely. No. I mean,
you can make a fortune off
that. Is somebody's that's the ultimate paycheck. That's when when the band's done. That's it. If you ever hear that, that means you will not hear from us again.
I think right after that is doing the answering machine messages.
Yeah, the answering machine messages, and then the Vegas review, and then you're done.
Right.
Yeah, we had that, and then we had we were doing a deal with this is one that was just kind of a weird one. We were doing a deal with a toy company, and we were really into toys and really into and it was like kind of like Lego-y, and it was really cool, and they were like, it's like a real like like little dudes demographic, and we were like, that's cool, because we don't it's not really one of the places where, I mean, it's one of the places where we definitely could like use help, and it seemed interesting. And then after those pictures came out, we just didn't get a lot of phone calls returned from it, so that was one of the cases where and it's interesting. The other thing that's interesting is I watch all these, I'll read these things, and I'll watch on, VH1 or whatever it is, like, what if Kurt Russell was Han Solo, like he was up for the role, or whatever, and you're like, well, that movie would have fucking sucked,
Right,
whatever.
exactly, yeah.
And or like the thing where they filmed half of Back to the Future with, I can't remember his name, the guy with the red hair, whatever, but Eric, I can't remember, but I always like noticed, I mean, you definitely as a band see sometimes other bands take the thing, like, like you passed on that or whatever. Yeah. And you're kind of like, it's just interesting, it's interesting. And it's interesting to like, like
who's leading.
Yeah, kind of. And it's like, like you're like, well, Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon are always up for parts, and you're like, that kind of makes sense because they kind of like, look the same a little bit or something. I don't really know, or whatever.
Right.
It's like it's just interesting to see like the bands that you think that you're probably like lumped in with, or whatever. And it's, I don't know, it's just a bizarre thing, kind of. You're like, whoa, you didn't go for us. That was number 2. And you're like, or were we number 2?
Right.
Really.
Right. It's like, right. The first date was couldn't make it, so I'm the follow up.
Yeah,
right,
definitely.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I mean, I guess with your level where you guys are right now, and I don't want to say a bell curve, maybe more of a roller coaster. How do you guys how does a band at this level that you're at right now stay in control of what you're doing? Because so much between the blogosphere and the message boards and the MySpace, and then you've got the media behind it and the different levels of media between, the totally cred media, then you got the celebrity magazines, which I'm really surprised you haven't gotten hit with the paparazzi, like the stalking paparazzi.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you stay in control of all that? Is it all come down to you calling up the management at Crush and saying, this is your job, you need to keep all this off of me, or you need to tell me where I'm going to start making the wrong decision? Or is this something where you guys collectively sit down and go, we're feeling a little stressed out right now because we're playing defense a lot?
It's weird. I mean, in the credibility scale, we were talking about this last night on the bus. There's like, all of a sudden when you're, I mean, there's certain bands and, they're going to be this size forever. Like, you're always going to be selling out 1,000 seaters. You're going to sell 100,000 records of every single record you put out till the end of time, and that's just going to be, and it's like a great career to kind of have, and then there, I mean, I think a band like us is like, it's going to be like here or it's going to be like here, kind of, and I did a very up signal and a very down signal just for,
right,
because the cameras weren't on, or whatever. But
dramatic effect.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, the credibility scale is so funny because it's like, about 4 months ago or something, I decided, I was like, everybody knows I'm going to go out and I'm going to wear eyeliner and, whatever, these clothes or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to just stop doing that because it's like, at some point you want to keep people guessing and you don't want to become a parody of yourself, which is kind of inescapable in the, industry that I'm in. But like, and I did it, and all of a sudden, like in our Q&A and in our MySpace, like we started getting all these like, emails like, Pete's changed so much, and he's so different now, and I was like, I'm not wearing fucking eyeliner, like it's not,
Yeah, but did Billy Joe go through all that when he, lost all that weight and then he put on the eyeliner and
I mean, I don't know.
It's like,
yeah, it's a weird thing, but then here's the other side of it is that
Gerard Way go through all that? Dyed his hair blonde?
And you want to know what? I think he did. You know what I'm saying? And people freaked out, and they were like, in a good way and a bad way. Like in one way where it was like people freaked out because they were like, oh my God, this guy's so different. But in another way, like he was able to be like, this is a brand new thing. And you're like, well, it's kind of a fucking haircut. But like, I mean, like, but people react in that way. And then, but the other thing that's so bizarre about it is, like a week ago or something, we were in Albuquerque and we got in a fight with the security at the show. And
the infamous.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, at the time, what's going through my head is like, this kid who's out with me is a guy that I've grown up with since I was 16, who got kicked out of his parents' house and lived with me since he was 16. And as soon as I could give him a job or like he could work, you know, I was really interested in that. And like somebody swung their fist at him, and it's like, well, he's probably going to beat the dude up on his own, but it's like, I'm never going to let my friends fight alone, because it's just kind of how I grew up. And I never really...
I think it's a Chicago thing.
Yeah, definitely, probably. You know, and it's like, but I never really stopped and thought, you know, like, this is going to be like, you know, another, you know, kind of like viral thing. But then all of a sudden it slides the other way on the credibility scale, where people are like, I have so much respect for Pete again. And like, oh my God. And it's like,
exactly.
You know, when you're like, well, I didn't, you know, like, that was like a lightning striking, you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't happen, you know, and that wasn't... in neither situation, I didn't change in either situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's obviously a gradual change of a person, and especially like in the situation, you know, or that we've been in, you know, whatever. But I mean, like, in neither situation was it like evidence of a change, or, you know, like me reverting back to who I was.
The media becomes a message.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like the week before that, it was Saddam getting hanged. That was the cell phone video.
Right.
You know, and then the second week it's you get in a fight with a security guard.
Right, and it's like the new media, and it's like the cameras everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And it's like everybody has. I mean, the thing that I find the most interesting, and I like talking to people about it, is that is there's this generational disconnect, I think, where my parents, I think, and people like a little bit older than me, and almost even me, I have this certain faith in the media, where you have an understanding that, you know, things have been fact checked. These, you know, like this, you know, there's
trust.
Yeah, just trust. There's not this, you know, like yell journalism. Like this exists. You know what I'm saying? And that and these are real. And obviously everybody knows the like couple magazines that aren't, you know, or whatever, like where you see the alien babies or whatever. Yeah, you know, or whatever. But then along comes the internet, and along comes, you know, these blogs and everything, and, you know, Wikipedia, and all of a sudden it's kind of...
reminds me, have you seen your Wikipedia lately?
No, I mean,
I pulled this up for Leslie Simon today,
Yeah.
and I was like, did you see how the Wikipedia starts? She's like, what do you mean? And it starts off, I have it right here.
Right.
It says, Fall Out Boy are a homosexual American pop rock band from Wilmette, Illinois.
Yeah, it's the most insane thing in the planet, you know?
So if you get a phone call from Out Magazine wanting to do a cover story, just so you know.
You know, and it's like, and you watch these people have battles where they're like, you know, this guy's changing it, and this guy changes it back, and he changes it.
Right,
and,
exactly, yeah.
And, but it's just, it's interesting because
Citizen journalist.
Yeah, but there's this like kind of disconnect, because I think some of this generation, or the in-between generation, kind of is hazy on it, and you don't really understand that, you know, everybody, you know, who gets on the internet doesn't need to have, like, you know, a license or any kind of credibility or fact check anything. But people believe anything anyone sees in print, they just believe a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you write this, and it's like nobody's picking up on the sarcasm, nobody's picking up on the fact that this person probably wasn't even there, you know, and it's
like those fights you get with your friends over instant messages.
Oh,
somebody didn't catch the sarcasm.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it doesn't get picked up at all.
Like, you don't like me now? Well, fuck you.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not touring with you anymore.
Yeah, totally.
You know? But, I mean, I do want to talk about, we kind of bounced around a little bit, but I do want to talk about fashion, because we're kind of dealing with this at AP right now. And that is like the fashionistas versus the people that are more like the average Joes. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, you know, there wouldn't be a punk rock or, you know, much less a hardcore born out of that whole thing in the metal, if it wouldn't have been for the London punks and stuff like that were the dress up, the ones that went to the stores and bought all this stuff and did all the hair color and all that stuff like that. And but there definitely seems to be this eternal fight that continually happens, and it's probably happened in scene after scene after scene. I mean, you go back and study the hippie scene; it's probably the same damn fight, you know, between the people that think that, you know, that they want to make a statement with their fashion, versus the people that think it's all about the music.
Right.
And you should be able to wear flannel and jeans and a beat up pair of whatever. They don't have to be Converses. They don't have to be whatever. And I guess like being, you know, having your own film or your own clothing company and having accessories, and I was looking through them and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, where are you kind of standing on all that? Is overall, like, is it? It's like that's what the Hot Topic fight is really about.
Right. I mean, I essentially
kids wearing Hot Topic.
Right. I essentially disagree with the latter.
The one that it's all about the music.
Yeah, I disagree on two levels. I really feel like like the music is the most important thing. I mean, like, you know, I don't go out and listen to what someone's wearing, you know, and that's not what I fall asleep to or something like that. But at the same time, when I think about the great icons, and not just in music, but in anything, you know, from politics to movies to whatever it is, have all had, you know, kind of a uniform or something that set them apart, or something that you remembered, and kind of, you know, whether it was the facial hair or was, you know,
well, look at the Ramones.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone
as simplistic
did.
as it
yeah,
was.
No, everybody did. I mean, to a lot
the
of
Beatles,
in a lot of the Beatles. That's what I was gonna say, and like Refused, and it's like, I think that it's obvious that it goes in it travels in waves, you know, where it goes to this, you know, height of androgynous, you know,
ridiculous.
Yeah, which is like we're there. We're in the ballpark of it right now. I don't think that there's enough bands doing it, you know, right now. But I mean, I think we're getting there where it's like it's
maybe at a peak with the Marilyn Manson.
Yeah,
stuff.
you know, it did. Yeah, and I think, and then I just think a lot of bands are kind of theatrical again. I mean, it's awesome, but you know the other one's gonna come. You know, the other side of the wave is gonna come out. And then the other thing I think is the other side of that is that I remember, you know, going to shows and I'd see like "This is not a Fugazi" shirt being sold, you know, and then I saw like a zillion people buying them, and I was like, but that is a fucking Fugazi shirt,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right?
I mean, like, the dude is in fucking flannel, but like that, and that's the anti-uniform, but that's like his fucking uniform. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is what, you know what I'm saying?
He's still making a statement regardless.
Yeah, people know, you know, because he's not doing it, he's doing it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like Eminem. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like he talked all this shit on like every pop artist and everything, but it's like he was played on Top 40 and TRL more than any of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I mean, I think that that's one of the interesting things, and I think that the other interesting thing is where you can kind of go with your brand. You can be kind of a Walmart brand, you could be a Hot Topic brand, or you can kind of be one of these like boutique-y brands, you know. And it's what's interesting to you, and then I think that, I mean, it's where you want to appeal, because, you know, when I was, you know, when I used to go by, you know, I would go by Atticus and stuff like that, I was like, you know, make some, you know, this was 2 years ago or whatever, you know, whatever it was, I was like, make some girls' jeans, like, we'll wear them, you know, or whatever, you know, I don't know, whatever, you know. Right. And they were like, yeah, nobody in the middle of the country will buy those, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's not there yet, you know, or whatever. And it's kind of,
people tell you not to do it, do it.
Yeah, totally. But you know what I'm saying, though? It's kind of like interesting, like how you have the coasts, kind of, and then like a couple of the major cities, but then, and you know, obviously like hipsters and all the cities, you know, or whatever. But then you also have like the middle of the country that's kind of always at a different point, you know, or whatever, or the red states or whatever you want to kind of call them, you know. You know, whatever. Right, then it's always at kind of a different place. And then like there's things that I didn't even know about, you know, like you know, there's branding guys. There are these guys whose job it is to brand you, which I didn't know. And, you know, 90% of these hip hop moguls and icons have used one guy. I can't even remember his name. And then there's this street team, I think, of about 80,000 girls, and maybe they have it for other. This is one that I happen to know about, who are kind of known as culture arbitrators or tastemakers.
Oh yeah.
And they are actually, you know, allowed to have these clothes, you know, 6 months out or 8 months out, and they wear them to school, and then all of a sudden people are like, holy shit, I got to be wearing like tight rolled jeans or whatever, you know. But I don't know if it existed when I was in school, but I had no idea. I just thought those were the cool people, kind of, you know. I had no idea that was like actually network, you know, or whatever. It's kind of, it's interesting.
I went past. I was going into Banana Republic the other day to get a T-shirt, and there was a girl that was standing in front of it, and she was a teenage girl, and she looked like a Fall Out Boy fan actually. And she was sitting there saying, she came up to me and she's like, "Do you know where Trader Joe's is?" And it was like like one of these more up and coming shopping centers. And I was like, "Well, it's right around the corner over there," and anybody would have known it. Yeah. And then I went in, and I came out 20 minutes later, and she's asking another guy the same thing, and that's why she was there. She was a plant.
Oh,
and
really?
It was just marketing. It was just to say Trader Joe's and get the guy to get the person to think about it.
That's insane.
Oh, so
yeah, it's crazy.
You know, it's really crazy. But why don't you tell me two songs that are your like the songs you put on that you go clean around the house in, you know, the ones that get you all psyched up to kind of like, you know, clean up the tour bus or you clean up or whatever.
I would have to say Gorilla Biscuits, Start Today.
Okay.
And what else would make me want to clean anything ever? I don't even really like cleaning at all.
Okay, well, how about just light and airy songs then to kind of make you in a happy mood?
I actually I like listening to Outkast, The Whole World, or whatever it is. You know, The Whole World Loves It When You Don't Get Down.
Yeah.
I like that song.
You definitely, I think as Leslie said, constantly connected.
Yeah, it's insane. It's the most annoying thing ever. Everyone always calls it, because it's not as bad right now, but people call it, what do they call it? Like my kind of like sidekick laps, where I'm going on it and people ask me a question, and I will, and it goes in and it like processes, and it's like, and it comes out like about, you know, like 45 seconds later than it's supposed to come out, and everyone's like, okay. But it's interesting because it kind of goes into this like zone somewhere, you know, like this nether region.
But you talk to everybody via a message or a text, but you don't hear them.
Yeah,
We're losing something. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens like in 5 years. I think it'll affect the whole culture, like everybody.
Yeah, it's
the way we won't be able to talk to each other so easy.
Yeah, it definitely affects social dynamics, and I noticed like a lot more people who text definitely need a lot more social lubricants when they're around real human beings.
Some more beers.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, you know, like we'll notice and we'll see whether people's thumbs become stronger. I mean, some girl was telling me,
Yeah.
she was like, you're going to end up with arthritis. And I was like, no way, I'm evolving. You'll see
Right.
these things. These things are
crush
going to
you
get
with my
huge. Yeah,
thumb.
these things are going to get
Exactly.
huge.
I'll lift your mini.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely.
You know, well, and that was one of the themes I did want to talk about, which is being a record company and also a band, and what you guys are kind of going through with everything. With the emerging technology and the way that everything, I mean, the iPhone is going to change.
Oh, insane.
Change everything.
Yeah.
You got the music industry basically giving up on digital rights management. Which
Mm-hmm.
probably, you know, like Bill Gates and those guys are figuring about a year and it's going to be finished.
Yeah.
So, like, what's it doing for? Where are you guys thinking? How are you feeling? As much as like the retail environment, the stores are closing, towers bankrupt and gone, stuff like that. I mean, you know, if you're looking in the future, how do you think a Fall Out Boy record is going to be, I guess, developed and then given to its fans?
This
Hopefully
is
for
like
money.
this is the most interesting probably topic that I could talk about, because I feel like I could talk about it for 24 hours and it would still be all hypothetical questions, and it's so interesting to talk about, and I think so many things. I mean, I've Mike Carden from the Academy is like said to me, he was like, he's like, Fall Out Boy is going to be the last band that's going to sell records, or whatever. And
that's interesting.
and I was like,
good point.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was like, that's bizarre kind of, I mean, I was like, it was a weird tag because I was kind of like, oh, that's just meant to fluff you up, but then I was like, it's kind of is a bizarre tag. And we went down to Brazil, about 6 weeks ago, and,
life's rough.
Yeah.
Life's real rough. I hope you know that.
So we went down there and we played a show for about like 42,000 people, and we're playing, and they're singing every word, and not to the singles, they're singing every word to every single song. And I get off stage, and like, you're like, when you get off a stage like that, like, I don't really care who you are, like, you get off stage and you're like, we're the biggest fucking band in Brazil, like, this is insane. I gotta go talk to somebody right now about this, So we get off, we go to talk to our people at our label, and we're like, we're like, how many records have we sold? And they're like 7,000. And I'm like, I mean, like, that's just it. Like, that was just like one like look into it, and it's like, that's gonna be everywhere, like, that was just Brazil. And I feel like, I mean, one of the reasons I think that, for two reasons I think that we've been kind of doing okay with records so far is because, one, I feel like we've kind of gone out of our way to demonstrate that we care about the entire package, like everything from the art to the song titles to the lyrics to every single song on the record, and want to have innovative ways to kind of have people involved. And then two, I think that, at least on our last record, how I felt about like the consumer was they were still slightly nervous about buying something that was intangible. Like a lot of consumers still really at that time,
Right.
and I think it's changed a little bit, but I don't really know. Like needed something hard that they had bought because
Right.
that's just kind of like the human dynamic, and then cared about the band or had some kind of attachment or empathy with the band. And that's why you would buy this record, whereas you wouldn't maybe buy this record because you didn't care about that, And so, I don't know. It's like, I mean, I guess I'll probably be a bit of a shit talker on this, but I think that the major label industry has handled this about as poorly as you could handle.
I don't think there'd be anybody who would disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's
certain labels have got a little bit more than others. But
yeah, it's
others
just
have been miserable,
interesting,
but
and it's labels run by the old guard, but trying to keep up with this technology that moves way faster than either the law or your marketing could ever keep up with. I mean, by the time you catch up with it, it's like they're already on to the next thing. Like,
exactly.
There's so many things about it. Like,
so do you think that the future of Fall Out Boy is going to be releasing digital records?
I think the future of Fall Out Boy will be releasing digital records and really live shows is where it's going to be at. Like
so more of a performance.
Yeah, we're a band that.
Not saying that you're not performing now, but
yeah,
you know what I mean.
No, totally, and we're a band that's definitely. We're okay that radio is kind of going away. Like we're a band that's done fine with radio and done fine without radio, and we'll be all right. And but it's kind of interesting because you see, on one hand, you kind of see a lot of labels getting real desperate, kind of, and all of a sudden, you have these deals where it's
sign
like
your merch away,
and it's like. Wait, why the fuck am I going to do that? That's the only place that I do all right. Like that's
80-20
like
deal. Right.
Yeah, why would I ever do that? And it becomes weird and a very compromising and bizarre position to be in when you're at a record label, because all of a sudden it's like you're hearing these murmurings and you're like, I mean, we are still selling records, but it's like at the same time it's like you hear people being like, well, we should get these like merch deals going. Like this is what and record labels are essentially becoming giant ad agencies, and that's like all they're really needed for, and then on the other hand, the thing that I started thinking about 2 weeks ago or so, Christmas dinner, because I was talking to my my aunt and uncle, and they're really into like U2 and bands like that, and they were like, why don't you tour with U2? And I was like, that's a fucking insane
do
thing.
the mega tour.
Yeah, and I was like, that's kind of an insane thing because I don't think U2
Gwen
like
Stefani and Fall Out
yeah,
Boy.
right, and then they were
and
kind
the
of
Pussycat Dolls.
right, yeah, and then they were kind of like also they were like, well, why don't you charge like $80 a ticket? And I kind of thought about this, and I was like, there's this group of gilded bands, you know what I'm saying, that exist. Like it's U2, the Rolling Stones, like bands like that they'll put out a record every couple of years, they'll win Grammys, they'll go out on a tour.
Dylan.
Yeah, and they'll go out on a tour and it grosses like something like retarded, you know what I'm saying, like that Rolling Stone list where it's like where you're like, I think we might be on it. Oh no, this like, and then you see the numbers and you're like, oh no,
Wayne Newton's Sunday act
right, totally.
in November.
Yeah,
right.
And the interesting thing the thing that I find the most interesting about it is that we haven't seen any bands move into that gilded kind of group in a really long time, I don't feel like. And it's like maybe Coldplay is kind of almost in the ballpark of it, or whatever, but it's weird. And it's like, is it because those bands kind of have made it a good old boys club, or is it like music was so different then, or like, I don't or is it just because it appeals to everyone, whereas the music that's out there right now, it just appeals to it's like so into some compartmentalized. I mean, like I don't even really know, but it's like it's a very weird thing to think about, because you're like, I don't know if I will ever be there. Like my band could be around for 20 years, and it's like we might probably just not. It's like, shouldn't Green Day be there? And it's like, I mean, maybe they like kind of are on the way to doing that, by doing some of the things that they've been doing, lately. But it's like, I mean, they've been doing it for like 15 or 20 years now, and it's it seems like they should be, you know?
Right. I guess, what do they say? It's like somebody just wrote in Time magazine recently. They say you no longer have your 15 minutes of fame. You now have your 15. You're not famous for 15 minutes. You're famous to 15 people on MySpace.
Yeah, which is one of the greatest quotes. And they actually said in it, I remember they said that they can't attribute it to anybody because so many people take credit for it, which is interesting because it's like so like ironic, you know? It's like, I don't know.
So just because you get probably 30 million demos a year, and we get them sent to us too, the ultimate question right now for any band or musician out there that's starting up high school, has your picture up on their wall, your guy's picture, and wants to be the next Fall Out Boy, do you have to sign to a major label? Because you know that's what that I guess the formality is still embedded in people's minds. It's just like commercial radio. You need to have commercial radio to get it. But I don't know a manager that agrees with that anymore.
Right. It's interesting because like a lot of the, you know, quote unquote, you know, I'll quote Pat from Dillinger 4. A lot of the independent rock out there is neither independent nor does it rock. I think that
right. Yeah.
I think that you know, people have.
There's a T-shirt there.
Yeah, I mean, people have a strange view of indie labels that aren't really, you know, I mean, and because I'm on the other side of things, I know that you're not really indie, you know, and you could say whatever you want, but you're not. You're essentially a major label or you're an imprint, you know, and then. And now these indie labels, you know, and it's an interesting thing because after you've had some success, it's like, how do you not fall into that thing? You fall into the major label thing where it's like, after you've had some success, you start getting desperate for the next success.
Right.
So you have sign up a bunch of things, throw it against the wall, and whatever sticks you get behind, and whatever doesn't just kind of like falls into like, you know, like wherever this cavern that never gets talked about again.
Right,
you know?
right.
And then you have these major labels on the other hand that want to be like indie labels. And want to be able to get bands from 0 to 80,000 or 0 to 50,000.
It's like
records.
the fat guy trying to fit into a 32.
Yeah, right. You know, and it's like,
yeah.
Everybody's got their own new system for doing it. Everyone, you know, whether it's like, you know, now managers are going to be labels or like, you know, whatever. I mean, like everyone has a new theory on where it's going to go and how it's going to be, you know, or whatever. But I mean, definitely when we signed, our label was not able to take us to commercial radio at the time. And at that point, like everyone still considered that really, you know, a necessity. And I think that we were one of the first bands that kind of did it in this way that, you know, I think that now at this point where it's at, you know, everybody, it's really easy to be like, you know, I saw that thing coming, like this thing was, you know, like, but it's like when you guys put us on the cover of AP magazine, we were like, holy shit, like who the fuck did we trick, you know, or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? We were like, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like we had,
right.
You know, like, and I think it was really, like really forward thinking because it was early, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I feel like we were one of the bands that just really had not sold enough records or had.
But it was the fan base. I mean, ultimately.
Yeah, you don't
need to sell 1 million records.
Right, totally.
If you got 70,000 fans that will buy everything.
It was totally. But I think it was one of the first. It was there were some people that were on board with that and understood that idea. You know that our fan base is so motivated that they're gonna get out there and show you that they exist. And there's some people that didn't understand it. And I think that the interesting thing since then is that there's been a couple of attempts to kind of follow this, you know, kind of.
So you set a
creation.
model unintentionally.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to do. It's hard to create like an organic viral buzz that's not organic. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. It's like if Fall Out Boy had all been a plan, like if we had gotten all the thents that we'd wanted to get, I think we would have had a very different history too.
You know, fight for it.
Yeah, you know, and it's like when we went to get added to modern rock. The week we went to get added, K-Rock shut down, you know, and I think a lot of these things were kind of blessings in disguise, you know.
Everything's meant to happen for a reason.
No, totally, and
you know?
But it's, I mean, I think that this is the biggest thing ever is that, to me, is that bands shouldn't feel so desperate to sign anywhere that they'll sign anything, because there's a lot of bands out there that are signed that probably shouldn't be signed, and then there's a lot of a band like The Format, who's kind of like, gone through the ringer, or whatever. And I think now has an interesting new way they're kind of going about things. But it's like, in my head, I don't see why that band shouldn't be, colossal, or whatever.
Right,
and you can figure all the things out, eventually. But it's I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of bands on major labels that should have been huge, like Quicksand or something like that just weren't. And then there's been bands where you're like, I never saw that thing coming. Like how many people saw Kid Rock coming and selling Diamond in his record cycle? You know what I'm saying? Like, how many people were really like, yeah, like, because I remember seeing it on TV the first time and being like, wait, isn't this like some 80 dude from the 80s? I saw him like at one of the MTV like spring break things. Like, I didn't get it at all, and then like, next thing I knew, it was like I went platinum, 11 times or whatever, and it's like 11 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now where is he?
Yeah.
Well, we do have to wrap it up, but I just want to ask one brief question, and then this will be the last one. But this one I've always kind of wondered about, especially with the Arms Race video and the way that you guys take it back. It's about 3 or 4 years ago, where you're back at. Now, is that supposed to? We were talking about this today in the office. Is that supposed to be the VFW? Is that a VFW hall, or is that the Knights of Columbus thing? What show is that supposed to be representing?
We weren't because we felt like we wouldn't be. We wanted to shoot it in the Knights of Columbus that we, were in or whatever.
They're in Chicago.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
and we weren't able to. And our director was like, well, we can recreate it, and we didn't feel comfortable like that one felt a little bit weird, kind of recreating, and not having the right people there or whatever. So it's kind of like it represents. It represents this thing. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go back to that period, and I'm just kind of wondering between then and now, and you're stuck in these vans, and you're crisscrossing the country, and there's the sights that you see from inside the van as you're watching, the country go past you. And was there ever one image that you saw sitting in that van? It could have been 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and half of you guys are sleeping or something like that, and the music's playing and stuff and whatever, and you just saw it, and it just moved you so much that today, when you just feel so fortunate, you kind of sit there and go back and you say, you know what? There's always that one that sticks in your head, you know? You kind of wonder, like, where's that person now?
There's I have so many interesting ones and so many firsts and crazy ones. I guess one that kind of sticks in my head is we went on this 2-week tour with Spitalfield, and we played maybe 2 shows on the entire tour because every single show fell through, and we just mostly snuck into hotels. Yeah. And we drove back from Los Angeles to Chicago straight.
Fun drive.
Yeah, and I drove from about LA to Montana myself, and I remember
at least the scenic route.
Yeah.
You're smart.
Yeah,
you didn't do the Kansas route.
No, I remember driving through Arizona, and I remember pulling over at this weird dinosaur, like fossils, bones thing, and going in by myself, and everyone else was asleep, and I remember looking at the like T-Rex out there and being like, feeling like it was Pee-wee's Big Adventure kind of, and that's definitely one that sticks out in my head. I mean, the other one probably
very Tim Burton-ish.
Yeah.
I will admit.
I got one other one, and that would probably be there's this giant Amoco sign in St. Louis, which is the world's, I think, biggest Amoco sign, and it's really huge. And we were in the parking lot of this, and it was the first time Joe, our guitarist, drank, and he got wasted. Like, he did the thing where he like drank like half a bottle of whiskey and half a bottle of vodka, because he didn't really, he was
2 steps away from alcohol.
Yeah.
Got it.
And he was sitting in between the trailer and the van on the hitch, and my friend had emailed me and I was like, what is this thing? He emailed me Postal Service, and I had no idea what it was. And I remember listening to Postal Service for the first time, and it was like before it was like the Postal Service, it was like this thing that like nobody knew about. And like it was like the most moving thing, and then I saw him just fall backwards between the hitch on his back, and I to this day I like remember that that moment like perfectly.